person if we don't like the way we behave? And how can we take what we learn here that isn't just on a science plane, although that's very important? Isaac Newton knew what we know from our studies. Isn't that amazing? He had that gift. He went to that dark place, that quiet place, and came up with many theories. And there are 12 laws of karma, but we take them all and we process them through a spiritual third eye. Good?
Very good. So let's take a simple look at karma, because karma can be very complex, at least in many layers of it. We're going to touch on that. So I'm going to take the easiest question, which is if karma and you can disagree with the definition that I've come up with, is causality, in a way, relationship with your thoughts, words, and deeds, that if you do good thoughts, words, and deeds, you'll have beneficial effects. Whereas if you have thoughts that are not so good, that you may lead to harmful effects. So have you, and if you could buy that for a moment, and as a living that and understanding that, have you made adjustments in your life now as to how you respond to situations? I'll take it, Tony. Has that changed the way you relationships with people?
Yeah, I think, I know it has mattered a great deal in the way I function on a kind of a daily basis. But I want to kind of relate this to what Louise just said, is that the Newtonian laws of physics is a really great example, because karma is taking those kinds of laws and adding a moral, ethical dimension to it. So if you do something, if you exert force in one direction, there's going to be a reaction to it. That's the way the physical world works. And the way the moral, spiritual world works is that whatever you do, there is going to be an impact, which has to be accounted for. So it's adding a moral dimension to Newton's laws. You put a moral dimension. So everything you do, every action, like it said in the early today, is a relationship. The karma is a relationship to the action. So that means that if you have an action against or an action towards the environment, there's a relationship that you have to account for. Like you were saying, there's a relationship. If the action is against or to someone, then you have to account for that. The action is to and a certain kind of effort you're involved with, that also is connected. So all of them have, I do agree, all of them are connected. But I think the clarity of this comparison with the laws of physics is what makes it possible to understand it. So that the law says something happens, there's going to be a consequence. And the law of karma says you cannot get out of the consequence. You have to deal with it. And if you don't deal with it, then there's another consequence. It never goes away. You never can walk away from it. That's what I understand when you say the laws of karma.
Yeah. Let me add to that. It's also, according to Newton, equal and opposite. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. That's very significant to me, because I have all the power if I'm in relationship with someone. And I've been taught here to not react the way I did my entire life. You say something I don't like, I'm going to win an argument with you. That's gone. They've really beaten that out of me here. I hope, most of the time. I always come from what we call what?
They have.
Yeah, they have. Soul consciousness, which means I am a child of a higher being. I am, as you said, moral, I would say spiritual person who is constantly correcting what I grew up with in my head, which was my ego ran the show. How dare you say that to me? I just had an incident with a family member who was, he runs a tutoring business and he wanted to hire me. And he wanted to observe me. Now, I've been doing this for 50 years. I hate to date myself, but am I the oldest one on the panel? I think so. Anyway, and I was really insulted. Like, is he kidding? He wants to shadow and watch what I do. I'm time tested. My goodness. And then something happened. I read our morning Merle, which said something I didn't understand at first. And what it said was, if you feel disrespected, remember this, Tony? If you feel disrespected, give respect. This came the day after I was insulted. And you know what happened? I called him up and I said, I think that's a great idea, but I can't unfortunately let you come in on a first session with a student because I'm bonding with the student. I'm establishing a relationship. I help kids read better and faster. So it's very programmed and very important to kids. But how about I do you on Zoom? How about you be the student? I'll be the teacher. I'll show you exactly what I do. So I gave him what he needed and wanted. And all of a sudden, my ego took a back seat. So it brings me to a higher place. It's not just, oh, I gave him what he wanted. I really felt good. I felt so good because I did not turn that karmic relationship into something negative. I took my negative response and I made it positive. That's power.
That is power.
Yeah.
That's
That's what we learn here, right?
yeah, that's a good segue to, did you have anything to add? Because I have I have a lot of questions, but.
Well,
it
you
ties into
specifically
what
said,
we said.
how did it change?
Yeah.
Does it change you?
Mhm.
And my response to that is, before I came to knowledge, I thought tension, getting involved in things that were tension producing, was actually a good thing.
Mhm.
I had an inverted karma type of mentality, and it only was occasionally that I would manage to get some contentment, but most of the time my default was tension. And as I've been coming here and going through the various aspects of knowledge and karma, I still deal with tension, but now it's not default. Now default is contentment. I don't have to worry about tension. I don't seek it. I don't look for it. I don't crave it like I did before, because it apparently at that time it made me feel like I was accomplishing something when what I was doing was probably alienating people. And now I try to keep tension kind of at bay, because I know that it's not producing anything constructive. And when I'm not in a tense situation, I'm automatically, content,
Mhm.
which is a big difference. And it makes for a much, much more uh, uh, peaceful, and I don't want to be redundant, say contented, but much more peaceful existence than it was before.
So one of the questions, and this, I haven't answered it yet for myself, so I'm going to throw it at you. Is karma, I want to say the law of karma, or is karma the study of karma? Can karma be a teacher then for us? Yeah, yeah. That's why I'm asking you, because I'm not sure if it's just the action itself. I think the relationship to karma, now that I'm understanding what Tony said, is a teacher, that maybe the action is not, but it's a signpost. And like you, at one time, if something was coming at me, I'm giving equal and opposite reaction. Pow! But now I know that there are consequences to that action. And I also believe that that person on a personal is going to come back at me, not even in this life, in another life. I don't want that to happen. I want that person.
Or it's happened already in this world.
There are people
Can't
that I
win.
don't know how they act to me. I was like, what have I done to this person in a prior life? So I don't want that to happen. So in a way, for me, it is a teacher. I don't want to go there again. So I want to ask you.
I'm going to say something that might be surprising. I don't think, I'm trying not to do a double negative. Karma has to be a teacher. Because if I don't learn from karma means action. So I'm doing actions. Thinking is an action.
Mhm.
So if I don't learn from it, then what am I doing? How do I get to be 80 if I'm 70 without, I wish, without 10 years of experiencing karmic relationships with people? Karma is designed for me to self-improve, I think.
I think you're right.
Well, the issue of karma being a teacher, I'm kind of going back to one of the tenets of the BK values, which is you don't give sorrow and you don't take sorrow. And to me, the teacher, the most powerful teacher in this kind of dynamic is learning how not to take sorrow, which is very difficult, very hard to do. And I think if you're talking about karma as a teacher, that is the one quality in the stuff that we kind of focus on that really is a teacher, because it was actually the first lesson I got from the BKs before I even came to knowledge when I was at a retreat in Peace Village. But not taking sorrow is an experience that requires you to grow, because if you don't, you just continue in the same cycle.
Great. Oh,
Oh, this is interactive. So if you have any
yeah,
questions,
you have
please,
questions,
please.
Oh,
I'm wearing two hats tonight.
I could have done that. I'm actually supposed to be.
Hi, I don't know if this is appropriate for this group or not,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm 95.6 years.
Mhm.
And I'm going into a different stage of life. And I don't know if that's called karma. Would that be considered a karma?
It's an what the action of aging is a karma?
What
I'm not sure. I
this
understand
gentleman
the question.
said, a relationship,
Okay.
and a relationship said a little bit of a relationship to yourself.
Okay.
Then all of a sudden, the karma word came into a relationship to me in a different stage of life, which is kind of an atmosphere and a physical and emotional, psychological atmosphere of a body
Mhm.
and an emotion
Mhm.
and a psychology. Is that an appropriate karma for me?
I can answer what I think. I don't know if the process of aging itself is considered karmic. I think when I think of karma, I think it is an intention. In other words, it has to be an intentional act, and all thoughts, even subconscious, are intentional. So I would say that offhand, just growing older is not necessarily karmic. Does that
But
make
is the
sense?
relationship to the age a karma?
No, but what she's talking about is now she's
Yeah.
95
Mhm.
and she's beginning to experience life somewhat different than she
Okay.
experienced it before.
Okay,
So that's
okay.
a different
That-
question.
That's a different
And
question.
I think that the answer is that, of course, it's karma, because you are experiencing results of actions, of some level of action.
Mhm.
Some of them may be your own, since you're now possibly reflecting on your life. Some of maybe people that are coming into your life or people that are leaving your life.
Mhm.
That these are the things that are qualities of karma. These are relationships
Mhm.
that either you've had or you've thought about that are coming back to you at this point. They should be coming back to you throughout your whole life,
Yeah,
but
I'm
sometimes
getting
That's what
two
I mean.
answers here. That's
Yeah.
why I just got into a confusion spot.
okay.
One answer was aging is not a karma. And you're giving me that aging for me personally is my
No, not
personal-
aging. You were
Not
saying
aging.
you were saying I am going into a situation at this
Right.
point in my life. I'm
Right.
experiencing new
Right.
things. I
Yes.
wasn't talking about age,
Experiencing.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the aging process.
right?
I'm talking in the process.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. So I thought you were not talking about the aging process. You were talking about
Oh,
the experience you're having now. Yeah.
Okay.
right.
So you're constantly changing. You're constantly a different person. Nothing stays the same. Is that a law
Right.
of karma?
yeah.
So if nothing, it's
That's-
somewhere in there.
Yeah.
It's probably Isaac Newton also. But the point is, I'm always in relationship. I'm not in relationship with the 10-year-old anymore unless she's haunting me or I have trauma or she's unearthing, all this stuff about me as a kid. But I'm not in relationship with her. But I'm also not the person I was 10 years ago. So there's a constant communication. And how many of us give each other negative messages all the time in our heads? I'm not my own best friend when I'm saying, you really can't do that. That stuff I learned this morning sounds great coming out of God's mouth, but I don't know if that's negative. And the positive is I go in there and I have a very intimate conversation with somebody who purely loves me, that I can't see, touch, hear, except in my own voice, in my own head, and through my third eye. Good? Are you good?
Okay.
All right, maybe we can
That's good.
talk after.
Well, maybe if
We'll
we
move on.
keep going
Yeah.
and talk about, I'm gonna give a pop version of karma, because karma is, like we had said, a very complex, and it's studied in many different traditions, not just among the Brahma Kumaris. And it's first coming into its fore, I think, in Western civilization. Do you agree? It's more an Eastern
It's
cultural,
still not
like
very
it's
prevalent
it's
in our
not prevalent
culture.
in Western traditions. So I think that's you're not alone. I dare say most people, if we were to sit in on this, would go, huh? They have karma is expressions on t-shirts. Like what goes around comes around. Have you seen that? That's what people will say karma is. Or there are other ones that are not as pretty.
Well,
You know?
currently the whole popularized notion of
Right.
karma is that if you do something bad to someone,
It's coming
it will
back
come
at you.
back to you. If you do something bad to the environment, it comes back to you
That's
you
a simple
face
way
the
of-
consequences of your actions.
Right.
That's the current popularized view of karma. And we're not really talking about that kind of global. We're trying to get into specifics of how it affects us
Yeah.
individually.
However, as ye sow, so shall ye reap.
And that's
Exactly balanced. And I just want to throw in one little thought while I have it in my head. I love the laws of the universe that speak universal truths. And one of them is the law of karma that balances everything, positive and negative. I can count on karma when the world is lying to me, when I don't like what's going on outside my kitchen window. I can count on it to be truthful and to balance me and trust.
so I'm gonna play a little bit more on the popular notion, because you still look a little confused. So one of my favorite movies, and I had written this out, is Groundhog Day. And it's funny, I don't know whether you've seen it or not. My husband, who doesn't know much about karma, loves that movie, and he watches it a lot. He goes, you should watch this movie because this is all about karma. So here's his impression of what it is. It stars Bill Murray, who's a very famous actor, and I always looked at it as a Hollywood movie trying to explain karma. So Bill Murray is the story's protagonist. He's not a very nice guy. He's a news commentator. He's selfish. He's self-centered. And one day he's supposed to be reporting on a Groundhog Day in Hoxsatackee, Pennsylvania. And one day he wakes up and he discovers that the day is exactly like the day before. In other words, it's Groundhog Day. He's in a hotel, and every day going forward, it's still Groundhog Day. And everything that happens during the day stays exactly as it was the day before. And he can't get out of it. And everyone else is living their life, but his life, he's stuck. And he repeats this over and over again. But it's not until he learns from these experiences and something's going on that he makes first minor changes to the way he deals with others and circumstances. And suddenly, when he starts benefiting others than himself, in my mind, he's able to break the cycle. He suddenly becomes a loving, giving individual. And lo and behold, he goes to sleep and he wakes up and it's the next day. So he was able to break the cycle. So what, to me, my husband says, that's karma. That, in other words, he was able to break it because he wasn't just about himself. He was able to give to others, and he benefited by moving out of it. So it's about creating, a new path and a new future. And I think ultimately what I get from it is that the goal of karma, as Louise said, is to make a better self. That's what spirituality is, to find your best self, and in that share with others. I think that's all. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm with the Brahma Kumaris. That's why I've looked for a spiritual path, to find a better path for myself, and in turn hoping that I can share that with others.
And to add one little piece to
Sure.
that, I so agree with that. But I'm here. My role here is to heal my karmas, to heal my negative karmas, which I did with the person I was talking about before. He didn't know what was going on. It was all in my head. That's my role as a Brahma Kumari, right? Agree?
Well, I mean, I've never seen Groundhog Day. But
I saw it once and I could never go back and see it twice.
um,
So repetitious.
it's so, but the notion that if there is something happening in your life that's not working out, some repetitive pattern with a person, a relationship, or multiple relationships, if that is happening, then there is something that you need to do. Because unless what's happening is very making you happy, which generally we're not talking about to making you happy, you're fine. If something is happening in a relationship, in a situation, in a context, in a job, that's making you unhappy, and it keeps repeating, then that analogy that of this movie, I think, is applicable. You have to begin to make changes in order for you to stop this pattern that you're continuing to do. That's also one of the aspects of karma, is that you're continuing to do the same thing. It's like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting there's going to be a different outcome. So I think that aspect of it, I would agree, is part of a karmic experience, is that something's happening. If you keep running into the same problem with every new person you meet, now this is something I have personal experience with, so I can speak about it openly, then you're doing something wrong. If this situation repeats itself with everybody you meet, it's very hard to justify that everybody you meet is wrong, although a lot of us try that, sometimes. But it's obviously something that you're doing that has to change. So the process of that change is part of the karmic lesson that you were referring to. It's how that's how you begin to say, okay, I have to do something different. Can't continue doing what I'm doing. And that's part of the karmic process. That notion that whatever we're doing, if it's not providing a positive outcome for us or for someone else, then we should do something about it.
I just want to say that what I learned here that helped me so much and I live it every day, is that if I keep repeating the same character flaw, personality thing, it becomes part of my personality. It becomes an ingrained habit. And once it becomes a habit, it's so hard to change. You know, it's like being an alcoholic or a drug addict. I mean, you suffer because you're used to people saying, oh, she's this, oh, he's that. And we stereotype ourselves and others. So to me, it's really important to catch it early as I can. And sometimes they could be lifetimes I've been doing it. So it's really hard. You know, think for a second. You all have those things you don't want to sound like, you don't want to keep that, but it's so hard to take a shower and get rid of it.
Before I understood, and again, understood, it's an esoteric term, karma, still to me. I don't know if I fully grasp it, but I think I do. I think I can. Many, myself included, believe that I was a passive agent in life, that life just happens and you're there. Not much you could do. It's ingrained. My personality is ingrained in me. And whatever happens, I'm going to react to it because that's just who I am. And I've subsequently learned that we're given free will. And that's across the board in every tradition. They talk about free will. That means that every moment we are making with our brain a thought, a choice in everything from the food we select to I'm going to say hello to her, but I'm not going to say hello to him. Every second is an action, even if it's just in our mind. So we're not passive. We, like you said, habituated to think, and the world now wants to think you're passive, that you can't make choices, but you can. And understanding karma means, as we say, you reap what you sow. And I feel sad if people don't understand that, because oftentimes you're locked in to something that you truly can get out of and make change for the better. And that's something that I feel has been my intent by coming here was to change. Yes. Yes. Yeah, otherwise no one could hear you. Okay,
But
we have
there are certain times you don't have the
Yes.
choices.
Zooms too, but go
Yeah.
ahead.
There are no choices.
You mean no choice.
There are no choices. When the body goes, there is not a choice. There is a different kind of acceptance.
Mhm.
There's a different kind of
That's a choice. too, I think.
well, the choice is, I'm not sure. I'm a little bit confused with the karma. If the karma says to me, yes, you have a choice, and your body says you really don't have a choice, then you have to make an adaptation
Mhm.
rather than a choice. So I'm throwing out a lot of thinking here,
Mhm.
and they're not so positive,
Mhm.
but they are also, I'm not understanding karma if there's not an adaptation.
Actually, very good. And I have an incident that speaks directly to that. I caught COVID before, let me give it back to you. Before the vaccine, before I could get the vaccine. And I thought I had got over it, and I went to a urgent care to see if I still had COVID, and they called an ambulance and put me in. The ambulance said, "You're in bad shape." So got to the hospital, and I was there for about 7 days on oxygen. And it was a time where a lot of people were dying from COVID. And I was really bummed out when one of the orderlies in the hospital told me that 30% of the people in the hospital who were entitled to take vaccines refused to take them. So that kind of made me even given more perspective to this. During that time, it was very interesting. You're really looking at possibility that you're not going to get through this, that, you're coming to the end of the line. And at that point, you have two options, right? You have options. You still have options. One, you can go into despair and say, wow, this guy next to me is on a ventilator. He may die before, and you know that other people in the hospital are dying. Or you can say, okay, this is where I am. Let me at least think or feel what is it that I'm going through. And it was extraordinary. The TV was on, and the TV was a screensaver, and it had all these constellations. And I spent a lot of my time looking at the constellations, particularly one that's called the Eagle Nebula, they're called the Pillars of Creation, really beautiful. And I was looking at that, and given the fact that I was looking at some very serious things, there were some things that were happening that I felt comfortable. For example, I wasn't worried about work at all, since work may not be an issue in short time. So I had stopped worrying about work, stopped worrying about issues about work, stopped worrying about my family and whatever issues they were dealing with. And I was very grateful that nobody could come and see me, because I really like being alone and not having to explain things to anyone, not having to make them feel better because I was sick. So I went through this, and it was an extraordinary experience, because I was actually detaching myself from all these things that up to now seemed so compelling. They were no longer compelling, because the consequences I was facing were transcended all of that. So you have a choice. You can either accept and look at what you're experiencing and try to understand it and try to bring it into yourself. And in that respect, it was very good, because I was able to really kind of just focus on how I was looking at my life at that point, not how my family was looking at the life, not how my office, how my business, none of that, all of that fell by the wayside. And it was actually a very, very good experience, because it gave me a perspective that I think I really needed. So despite the fact that for 4 or 5 days, things didn't look very good, I actually went through it, and it was, you do have a choice, right? I didn't have a choice not to get COVID, but I did have a choice as to how I faced what was going on. And as I went through, as each day passed and I let more and more stuff go, I was feeling really, really kind of, okay, I'm good with this. I mean, eventually they came back and told me that I was recovering, because there was a certain kind of period before they started getting really upset. And I think that there is a choice. Even in the worst circumstances, there is a choice.
So, thank you. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for your question.
Welcome back, Tony.
Yeah, I'm glad it worked out. I really am. So I also think with karma that, why the question, is why are we here? What is this, what's it all about, Alfie, as the song would say? And we're all here to, I believe, play a part in the world and to contribute something. And it could be the most minute thing, but as they say, the butterfly wing, what is that? You could feel it. You could feel it. I believe that. So that's the choices that we make. Even in those intentions, we are examples. We're setting examples for other, and it can be setting an example. And I think what you were talking about, you're setting an example, even unbeknownst to your, was it your brother? I'm sorry.
No.
Somebody. You're changing the dynamic for the better in the way you make the choices. And that's what's so wonderful about karma. It doesn't only better yourself, it can have the possibility, well, not the possibility, it's definitive of absolutely making the benefits for others too. And I believe ultimately that is why we are here. World's tough. It's tough. This is not an easy place. But what we choose to make of it is really the ultimate choice, and how we can move the world a little bit in that tug of war into the right alignment.
Can I add something? 2 things. My job is to take a negative and turn it into a positive. My father, I think I've said this before, but my father used to tell the joke about the difference between an optimist and a pessimist. The pessimist runs into a horse barn, comes running out. Oh my goodness, it stinks in there. And the optimist runs into the same barn, takes a deep breath, comes out with a big smile on his face and said, must be a pony in here somewhere. My job, no kidding around, is to take anything that I perceive as a negative experience and turn it into a living lesson for me because I'm so addicted to this place. I think everything that happens is tailor-made for me by the God of 8.3 billion people who can attend to all of us at the same time if we just ask. It's amazing. The energy. Sometimes I woke up in the middle of the night last week and I'm saying, oh my, literally, oh my God. He's everywhere. He's not in a leaf like some religions believe. But if I say, hey, I need you, early morning, we get up early, 4 o'clock, but I digress. I have the power. You know, we have 8 powers we talk about. I have the power to not give the other person I'm in relationship with the answer for what they think is going to come out of my mouth next. And I've said this before. I have the power not to say it. Our children. Yeah, children. How many of us? They know what we're thinking, and they are the lawyers who are going to come back with the smart answer and try to win an argument. That's what teenagers do, right? So I have that power. I have the power to tolerate and turn something around. If somebody is misbehaving, as in my way of thinking, I don't have to react. I can respond by giving them what they need to fill in their little self-respect that's missing in the moment. So I have tremendous power.
You know, what you said before about changing the dynamic about what is it that we're here on earth to do. And I really feel that statement is the definitive statement. You're here to change the dynamic. That's the purpose you have on earth. You have children, you have husbands, you have wives, you have parents, so on and so forth. Your role in all of those things is to change the dynamic of those relationships to reflect the dynamic of the world that you're in at a particular moment. And I think that is really, if you're looking for some underlying karmic a rule, is that you have to be changing the dynamic of your life. Because if you're not, then you're basically standing still. Then your things are just happening around you. So for you to actually find a place for yourself in the world, it has to be you're changing the dynamic. Otherwise, you're just basically waiting for things to happen, and that they happen. They may be good, they may be bad, but they're not going to impact you. She had a question. Oh, okay.
Okay. Let's just, are there any other, we'll take your question in a minute, but let's just give it, is there anyone else that would like to ask a question? Go back. Does anyone have any specific things in their life that they were able to change a little bit and have a different outcome? Instant karma. Well, we could talk about, that was one of my favorite. Instant karma is going to get you. I don't know if I believe that, but I actually find things happen later. But that's another thing with this world. I think a problem is people do want instant karma. They want, it's transactional to me. And that's not what this is about. It's not, I'm going to do this for you and I'm going to get this back. That's a fake instant karma. That's a whole other just pop discussion.
That's a transaction. That's not karma.
That's not even that's a transaction, which is
rise to the level
identical
of karma.
to karma. But
Anybody have their own example? Or I have one thing I wanted to talk about before we conclude. Is that okay?
yeah.
I had a situation with a family member who is encouraging his child to do something dishonest. And I didn't say anything because I've realized here that everybody has their own role. Everybody has their own, that I need to detach, not play God like I used to try. And it really, but I thought of how to handle it. And it took me 2 days. And I haven't written, I'm going to write a little text or note and just say, and it's what we were talking about before. Sometimes when we condone dishonest behavior in our children or in ourselves, we make that hole in us deeper because it becomes what we call a sand scar. It becomes an ingrained habit. And how would that person feel if his son wound up doing other things that are dishonest because his father condoned it? But the healing for me was to detach from it because that's his role and his son's role. That's the hardest thing I think I've learned here. To not be that relative who's going to judge. So my note of 2 or 3 sentences is going to be neutral. It's not going to be a judgment. It's not going to be, how could you do that? That's karma. And that's using my power. But it took me 2 days, guys. It took me 2.
To add to that, and I appreciate that, to add to that too, is about expectations for karma. I think a lot of times you do actions with the idea that you have an expectation of what's going to happen. Well, if I give charity, I'm going to get this. That may happen, but I think we also, and that's something I'm working on, is to not have expectations for my actions, to have it detached from what is expected. In other words, that there are no, if I do something for you, I shouldn't expect anything in return. That is truly, to me, the gift of karma. And that's a higher plane. I'm not there yet, but that's another thing that I'm working on, is not to have expectations. And even for bad, you know, when you think, oh, this is going to happen and this is, what is it, 70% of what you think is bad is going to happen is not going to happen. So that's also an ingrained thing. But
Do you have a quick comment?
yes,
And
you
we're
wanted-
running late, but did
yeah.
you want to say something?
yeah,
We want to cut
and
you
then
off.
we're gonna.
Quick. And anyone else who wants to comment after.
I'm thinking, in my state right now, at my time in life, not a young adult, not an adolescent, not a toddler, but an older person at this stage, I do set an example. I do. I work very hard at it. I work very hard at independence. I work very hard on keeping a good family together and a house and myself and driving and healthy and all that other stuff. I do have an area around me that people say, wow, and I like that. And I need that so I can continue that. So I don't know. I'm a little confused with the word expectation. If I am giving something, I am expecting something in return, whether it's a thank you or, wow, I will try to do it the way you're doing it because it sounds good to me. So the expectation that I'm giving, I'm expecting a reaction. So I'm getting a little bit controversial here.
It's something to work on.
Yeah.
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 Expectations are downhill. Very dangerous.
If you're 95 years old and doing the stuff that you're talking about, you're changing the dynamic every day.
Right.
Because at that point in your life, everything you do is going to be unique and special. Then maybe that's one of the things you should embrace, is that at this point, everything you do is unique and special, because it's not a place where most people arrive at. So whatever you're doing is a dynamic of extraordinary proportions. And you're changing the dynamic just by being and by continuing to function the way you're saying. I mean, because most people in your situation are just not doing this.
I'd just like to add, it's been a very interesting discussion to watch and be a part of. I guess what I'd like to comment on is that karma, I think we're so focused on not creating negative karma, like, identifying the negative and the positive karma. And what I'm hearing from this conversation, for me again, I don't really focus on what the consequence per se, but if I just connect with him and stay conscious and focus on being a loving, kind, generous, compassionate, merciful, graceful human, a soul in a human existence, karma, quote unquote, turns out, quote unquote, positive. You don't have to live with the guilt and the shame and the fear and that low vibration. If all my energy and focus is staying on the point of light and staying in God's love and presence. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to worry.
Well
Thank you.
said. Very nice. Very nice. So we're going to wrap it up. And I just want to, can I attach a caboose? Because it segues into my ending. It's perfect. And then we're going to have, stay for a moment. We'll have a quiet meditation. But I wrote this, we're born into this world with gifts. We all have gifts. And I believe a mission. Whether you know it or not, there's a reason you're here. Why am I so fortunate to be a human being? I every day I wake up and go, I'm a human being. Wow, how did I get here? And that purpose is I think, to bring that uniqueness to the world and that sharing of those gifts. And hopefully people perceive them as gifts. And that's kind of what, karma is. But again, it's a work in progress. So I hope that kind of ties in, and again, that connection, it helps a lot, the connection, without a doubt. You have to be mindful. So with that, thank you so much. This was very, good. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed the discussion. And let's have Tony's going to do a meditation for us for a few minutes. And then please stay for Toli. And we have one announcement. There's no Thursday. I can give it, right, because this is Memorial. Oh, this is Memorial. Oh, then what? Oh, no, I just don't know what the.
Someone said it to me on the way in.
What?
Okay.
Yeah, I
that
don't
in
think,
writing?
I didn't have anything for the 28th.
Okay, so
You're right.
watch for your email.
Yeah, look for your emails.
Or call here.
Right.
Okay. Sunday.
Yes, there's going to be on Sunday
Yeah.
at 2:30. Oh, have that Tuesday.
35,
One,
30,
yeah, I'll find. Yes, it's International Day of
Tell you
Yoga.
more next week.
Yeah, we have an International Day of Yoga, which I'm supposed to have. And yes, Sunday, June 14th from 2:30 to 4:30 here. We're going to have their International Day of Yoga for the public. Yes, in person only. Yes. Yeah. Let's have a few moments.
We settle. Onto ourselves. Turn inward. Slowly releasing. Our attachment to the world outside. And slowly moving towards our center. each move, we get lighter. We get freer. And begin to see point of energy and light that we are. We don't move closer, but feel it more intensely. As we move all the fingers of the outside world pulling on us. We engage in this exercise. To create balance. Of our center of energy and light. The world outside in which we have to act. Knowing this is where our actions fully come. Om Shanti.
Both for joining in this conversation. Really enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it and took benefit. And thank you, Zoomers, for joining us. And thank you all for being here. And please stay for Toli.
And thank you,
And thank you.
Michelle. And thank you to
And
the control
thank
room
you.
brothers
Thank you for filling in.
for allowing us to do this tonight. Thank you. Om Shanti.